Hey, here I am again, Timothy Cameron, aka the Incomplete Skeptic, aka Sober Wise Guy, and a whole bunch of things other than still locked up. You know, I've been hitting on some topics that affect ex-cons generally, and of course myself specifically because I want to talk about experiential things more than hypothetical, theoretical. And I think that's probably what people are more interested in anyway. And at least I hope so, you know. Um, when I got out on August 17th of 90, I had no expectation to stay sober, to get sober. The need for sobriety was not ensconced in the apex of my consciousness. It just, it crossed my mind a few times because I had attended some 12-step meetings in Stillwater Prison. And but part of the reason I went was for the coffee, you know. Where else could you get coffee at 6 or 7 at night? So and then, I sat in for some of the meetings and heard some good stuff, and I had, a purient interest in recovery. It's like, well, what can I get out of it, and what's it going to do for me? But not in terms of realistically what my problem is and how I can help others with it. It was just this fantasy, I guess, I had of wanting to help other people without having to do any work on myself. you know, right? You ever done that? I sure was doing it. I just thought I could help these poor saps, and I wasn't honest about my needing to quit drinking or drugging, anything like that. So I don't know what I was going to give them to help them. But people were there for the right reasons, other than me, I guess. Maybe not. Who knows? But the day before I got out of prison, I was in a really bad place. It's like I really didn't want to come back. Seriously, didn't want to come back. And my whole life was going to just be done if I got incarcerated again. And it was going to be done as in I'm going to do some really nasty stuff to somebody if I got locked up again, or I'm going to make them do it to me, but somebody's dying. That's the way I looked at it. So it was really important to me to not get locked up again, but I had no tools. The best of intentions don't always go far enough, right? If you don't have the means to do it, and the conviction to question your own paradigms. I had no reason to question my paradigms. I just assumed that most of them are true. I was willing to question things, but I didn't have the wherewithal to do it. So, we take things for granted sometimes. And even though I did believe in questioning my convictions, I didn't see into my problem enough to actually do it in the areas that needed it the most. Um, God knew what God was doing. And and the funny thing is that God kept showing up despite my attacking myself through incarceration um and the things that led to it. So um yeah. So when I got out on the 17th, I did what I was supposed to do, got moved into my new apartment in Oak Park Heights, which was about a mile from the prison. Oak Park Heights prison. I did time there as well. And I really just wanted to stay in the area just to annoy people that worked in the prisons, and I wanted them to know that I was nearby, and I was pissed about the way they treated me, and the way they treat people generally. You know? So I had some sick needs, and but the following day, the 18th, I went out and I got drunk. And the only reason I even had a beer was just to prove that I'm not an alcoholic. I wanted to prove to those a-hole anonymous people, is what I thought of them in my mind to some extent, that I'm not one of them, and I don't need that stuff. Well, they have a saying. First, the man takes the drink, then the drink takes the drink, and then the drink takes the man. And that's what it looked like for me that night. My 3-2 beer, one glass turned into 2.5 pitchers, of which I only drank one half of a pitcher, was at Carboni's. And then I hit every bar in Stillwater because it's like I've got the juice now, right? I'm losing my sanity. The fire water is in my brain, and I'm wondering, where's the women? There's no women in Carboni's, and so all of my best intentions to just prove that I'm not an alcoholic, they disappeared. My intentions, as desperate as they were to not go back to prison, that went away. It's like alcohol's in my system, and it's too late. I don't use reason when I drink. And I've sold my freedom for a drink more times than I can count. And so after the bars closed in Stillwater, I caught a cab to Wisconsin and I drank for another half hour or so. And I was mad when they closed over there too, and then I went back to my apartment sicker than a dog, probably was on the brink of dying from drinking, because I went from drinking nothing in prison to drinking as much as I used to. And I didn't have that tolerance to fall back on anymore. I damn near died, I'm pretty sure. When I touched my arm with my fingers, it felt like I was touching death. Literally felt like I was touching death. And I looked back on my behavior that night, and it was absolutely nuts. The way I treated people, the way I talked to people, threatened people, disrespected people. Every other time I behaved that way, I either got into a big fight and then got in trouble because of it, or I got thrown out by bouncers or beat up by somebody, or the cops got involved. It never ended in a good place when I started getting cocky and arrogant and mean. And there's a couple kinds of drunks. There's a mean drunk and there's a crying drunk. Well, I would alternate between one and the other, but and sometimes I was a happy drunk. I guess there's that. So maybe there's 3 types. But one thing's for sure, when I drink, I lose control. Loss of control is characteristic of a guy like me. But alcohol or drugs in my system and I lose control. I'll do things that I wouldn't do sober. And here I was violating my supervised release from drink one until on August 19th, at 3:30 in the morning, I realized that I had a miracle happening in my life. The miracle was I didn't get arrested. And I realized it. I looked back and I thought, oh my gosh, the way I acted that night, every other time I did that, I got busted. And I had this like idea that I'd walked through a field of enemies and nothing happened to me, you know? And I literally felt like I had been protected. And I really felt like I was protected in prison, and I didn't really know why. I know I begged God for protection, and I think I got it. But why would God do that? Because not everyone gets protected. And, there's probably other people that have prayed and had issues. I don't know. This is beyond me, but I know that those prayers are answered. And I'm only guessing it's because God knew that I would devote my life to helping others with the things that had happened in my life. So when 3:30 in the morning came around and I got honest about being an alcoholic on August 19th of 90, um, I just told myself, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to take a drink again for the rest of my life. And I meant that. I meant it. I felt it in the marrow of my bones. And I don't say that arrogantly. You can't combat alcoholism with arrogance. It just doesn't work. It's just something that I knew, my intuition. And I can always screw everything up. God, please help me. Don't do that. You know, but as soon as I got honest, something happened in my consciousness, and I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to my original condition, which is sanity. We're born, probably most of us are born sane. Before all the stuff that happened to me, I got that back. And I got my innocence back to some degree. And slowly but surely, I got more and more of it back. But I got enough of it back to have my hope that, and my belief that I could be restored to sanity. And it was a clarification in my mind's eye that um, really meant something. And at that moment, I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand God, and was determined to go to any lengths to stay sober, um, and to protect my freedom through sobriety. And I walked into this 12-step program in Stillwater at the Alano and started listening to people and taking their suggestions. For the first time in my life, I would listen to people generally and listen to what they were saying because, I got my butt kicked by alcohol, and I knew I didn't know anything about recovery and sobriety from the perspective that I was now willing to subject myself to have a good life. And I don't know if that made sense the way I said it, but hopefully you see where I'm going. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to cut this short now. Here, it's been quite a few years, you know. Uh, it'll be what, 34 years in August, God willing, the creeks don't rise, that I've been out of prison and I've been sober. And you can bet your bippy, as they used to say in the 60s, that there's a connection, be a dot connector. And if a guy like me can, have his life get turned around, the prison psychiatrist at Oak Park Heights said it's a foregone conclusion that Timothy Cameron will spend the rest of his life in prison because my belief systems are so damaged. He really believed that, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he said it just to tick me off. Because they do have a saying, it's if somebody has an authority problem, like most alcoholics do, you can always tell an alcoholic, but you can't tell them much. And if you tell them to do something, they're probably going to try to do the opposite, so maybe he was just doing that. I don't know. I just thought he was a corrupt scumbag who was making money off of me and other people, and would, uh, you know, because he didn't like my belief systems, he is willing to throw me under the bus. And that's possible. People do that, but it's also not just that simple. So, yeah, he was wrong. And I'm really sure that we should never believe a power that doesn't empower us. Never believe in a power that doesn't empower us. And he's not my higher power. I don't have to let in what he said. I can consider it. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I don't have to let it in. And we should never believe a story that doesn't empower us likewise, right? So change the story in your head if you're wondering how you're going to get and stay sober? How are you going to stay an ex-convict rather than, you know, uh, going back in and being so depressed you might want to off yourself or hurt someone else because you're just feeling so rotten about life, you know? And, healed people heal people, hurting people hurt people. And I'm pretty sure that happy people don't go around hurting people. So our problem is a big piece of it, at least, is not feeling good enough about ourselves. And, my old sponsor, Mary Jo Robinson, said, your problem is that you're walking with the enemy and the enemy is you. And, you know, boy, she hit on something there. And that's another part of the story that I'll tell at a different time, because that's there's a big backstory on that part of it. She gave me an assignment. All right, y'all. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in to The Incomplete Skeptic, and listening to another episode of the Ex-Con Journal. Peace out. Stay happy.